Ready for a deep dive.
Let's do it.
All right, so we're tackling Jonathan Franzen today.
Yes.
Specifically, his essay collection, How to Be Alone. But we're not just sticking to the book itself.
Nope.
We've got excerpts, of course.
Of course.
But we're also bringing in Goodreads reviews.
Always fun to see what other readers thought.
Oh, absolutely.
And then a deep dive into one specific essay.
Ooh, a deep dive within a deep dive.
Exactly.
Love it.
So consider this a crash course.
In all things Franzen.
His views, his opinions, everything from American literature to, well...
To his little spat with Oprah.
That's right. We can't forget about that.
Oh, we'll definitely get into that.
Okay, but first, for those who haven't read How to Be Alone,
Yeah.
What's the deal with this book?
So picture this.
Okay.
It's 2002, Franzen. Already a big name thanks to novels like The Corrections.
Right.
He drops this collection of 14 essays.
14.
14.
Okay.
Written over a span of like 7 years.
Wow, so these aren't just like, off-the-cuff thoughts? No.
He's really wrestling with some big ideas here.
Big ideas.
Like what?
Well, how do we stay individuals in a world that's like constantly bombarding us?
Right.
And what's it even mean to be a reader or a writer these days?
In a culture that's, I don't know, obsessed with everything but serious literature.
That's Franzen's big question.
So not exactly light reading.
Definitely not beach material.
And then there's Franzen himself.
Ah, yes.
The man behind the essays.
This is where things get interesting.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
He's got this reputation, right?
I've heard a few things.
Brilliant, insightful,
Uh-huh.
but also, some might say, a little crotchety.
Okay, that's putting it mildly.
Some might even say pretentious.
Yeah, that word has come up a few times.
And you see that in the Goodreads reviews we dug up.
Oh, they're all over the place.
All over the place, yeah.
Some people think he's a genius.
Right. A martyr for truth and beauty.
Seriously.
Like he's some literary saint because he doesn't watch TV or something.
Wow, that's intense.
And then there's the other end of the spectrum.
The Franzen haters.
Well, not necessarily haters,
Okay.
but definitely not fans.
Right.
One reviewer, for example,
Yeah.
said they broke up with their girlfriend.
Ouch.
And she stole this book,
No way.
among many others.
Ooh, that's rough.
So yeah, strong opinions all around.
Even if they don't love him,
Okay.
even the not-so-positive reviews,
Right?
they admit he's a good writer.
Oh, absolutely.
There's something about his style.
One reviewer said it's refreshing to read someone who can, and I quote, annoy the shit out of you.
Okay, I kind of get that.
Right. Like he's honest,
Yeah.
raw,
Not afraid to challenge you a little.
not afraid at all.
So he's a provocateur.
I think that's a fair assessment.
Okay, so that makes me even more curious about these essays.
Good.
What stood out to you?
2 in particular.
Okay, hit me.
Why bother?
Okay.
Sometimes called the Harper's essay because it caused a stir when it was published there. In this one, Franzen is basically lamenting the state of American literature. He sees serious reading on the decline, and he's not happy about it.
So he's like mourning the death of deep thought
Exactly.
in this world of quick information.
Instant gratification.
Right. I don't know. Does that resonate with you at all?
I think it resonates with a lot of people.
Yeah, I can see that.
This yearning for something more substantial.
Amidst all the noise.
Amidst all the noise, yeah.
Okay, that's one essay.
Right. And then there's Meet Me in St. Louis.
Okay, that one rings a bell.
This one's all about Franzen's experience with Oprah's book club.
Ah, yes, the infamous Oprah incident.
That's the one.
Tell me everything.
Well, it all starts when The Corrections, his breakout novel, gets chosen for Oprah's book club.
Big deal.
Huge deal.
So he's thrilled.
At first, yeah, over the moon.
Right, I mean, it's Oprah.
Exactly. Yeah. But then the doubts set in.
What happened?
I think the more he thought about it,
yeah,
the more uncomfortable he got
uncomfortable with
his work being presented to such a massive audience.
Oh, I see.
Like his art would get diluted.
Right.
Turned into what he called, and I quote, schmaltz.
Ooh, that's not good.
And then came the interview.
Oh.
Where he dropped the high art bomb.
Oof, I can already see how that wouldn't go over well.
Not well at all.
Labeling your work high art.
It's a bit elitist.
Yeah, like you're above everyone else.
Exactly.
So Oprah wasn't happy.
Not happy. She disinvited him from the show.
Oh, wow.
And the media had a field day.
Public relations nightmare.
Exactly.
It really highlights this weird tension
between high art
in popular culture.
Right. Like, where's the line?
Is there even a line?
Or is it all just personal taste?
Big questions.
What do you think?
It's a tough one.
But let's put Oprah aside for now
Okay,
and go back to why bother.
let's do it.
You mentioned a reviewer, Ian Marvin Gray.
Yes.
What did he have to say about this essay? Well, his analysis is really insightful.
Okay, I'm listening.
He points out this inherent paradox
Yes.
of being a writer.
Okay.
You need solitude to create.
Right. To connect with that, what did Franzen call that? Substantive imaginary world.
That's the one.
But then you also want to be heard.
You want an audience
So it's this delicate balance
between your inner world
as a writer
and the outer world of readers.
and the literary community.
It's like Franzen's wrestling with this idea.
Yeah.
Can we ever truly be alone
As writers.
as readers?
Even as human beings.
In a world that's constantly pulling us in different directions.
Yeah, I get that.
And Gray makes this really interesting point.
Okay.
He says that maybe Franzen, despite the title of his book,
How to be alone.
yeah, he only really teaches us how to be alone, but not how to be social.
Wait, what do you mean?
I mean, it sounds obvious, right?
Being alone is being alone.
Right. But Gray's arguing that Franzen focuses so much on the individual, on this inner world,
Of thought and culture.
that he kind of forgets about the social side of identity,
Oh, I see.
how our interactions with others shape who we are.
So it's not just about being comfortable with solitude.
It's about understanding how that solitude fits into our social lives.
Interesting.
Like he's giving us half the equation.
And we have to figure out the other half ourselves.
Exactly.
He tells us how to be alone.
But what about how to be social?
How to bridge that gap.
That's the big question. And that's where I think Gray's analysis really hits the mark.
Okay.
He suggests that a stronger sense of identity, the kind that comes from introspection,
Right.
but also from genuine connection with others,
Uh-huh.
that can actually make us more social.
Or so?
Yeah, more capable of forming like real meaningful relationships.
So it's not this either thing.
No.
Like you can be a loner and a social butterfly.
Exactly.
You don't have to pick a side.
Nope.
That's really interesting.
And he even says that
Yeah.
reading, this solitary act,
Right, that Franzen's all about.
right, that can actually be a remedy for the, what did he call it, the social isolate.
That's a new one.
It's like by immersing ourselves in literature,
Yeah.
we're not just escaping.
Yeah.
We're actually equipping ourselves to engage with the world.
I like that.
It's like we're expanding our social horizons
Even when we're physically alone.
with a book.
Right. Well,
And this all circles back to
Uh-huh.
Franzen and the whole Oprah thing.
oh, right.
It's almost like he saw this huge audience
This massive potential connection.
and he just like recoiled.
He couldn't handle it.
I think he was afraid of being misunderstood.
Or having his work oversimplified.
Yeah, stripped of its complexity.
It's like he didn't trust them to get it.
Yeah. And in Meet Me in St. Louis, there's this really telling moment.
Okay.
Oprah's crew, they wanted to film his father's oak tree.
For a coming home segment or something?
Yeah, something like that.
And Franzen just flipped out.
Well, not flipped out,
He was
but
happy. He hated the idea of his father's memory.
this deeply personal
being turned into,
schmaltz.
yeah, schmaltz for TV.
I get it.
It's like he felt this pressure
To
to package his grief
make it palatable.
for mass consumption.
And that just rubbed him the wrong way.
Big time.
And that's where the high art comment comes in.
Right. Whether he meant it that way or not.
He created this barrier
Between his work.
and Oprah's audience.
Like he was saying, people wouldn't understand this.
Which is, pretty arrogant.
It is, and it raises this question, who decides what's high art?
Right, who's the judge?
Is it even fair to make those distinctions?
That's a tough one.
It's a slippery slope.
And I think it's even more relevant today
Oh, absolutely.
with social media and this obsession with shareable content.
Everything's got to be bite-sized.
Easy to digest.
It's like we've become allergic to complexity.
Nuance is dead.
And that brings us back to why bother?
And Franzen's worries about serious reading.
He wrote this in the late 90s.
Can you imagine what he'd say now?
Oh, I didn't want to think about it.
But his concerns, they're still valid.
Totally.
We're drowning in information.
Lost in the endless scroll
It's so easy to skim the surface.
and never dive deep.
Exactly.
And that's why Franzen, as
Yeah.
flawed as he might be, he's so compelling.
It's forcing us
Yeah.
to confront this challenge
Yeah.
of staying intellectually curious.
In a world that's designed to distract us.
He's like a voice in the wilderness.
It's reminding us
To slow down,
unplug
engage with ideas that make us think,
and how to be alone.
despite the title.
Yeah, it's really about that, isn't it?
It is.
It's about creating space
For solitude,
for reflection.
for deep engagement with literature.
It's funny, Franzen's complaining about the decline of serious literature,
What?
but he's also part of the solution.
How so?
His essays, his novels,
Yeah.
they force us to slow down.
They make us grapple with complex ideas. He's like a walking contradiction.
He is, but maybe that's what makes him so interesting.
He's not afraid to be messy.
To be flawed,
It's right there with us.
wrestling with these big questions.
And maybe that's the biggest takeaway from How to Be Alone.
What do you mean?
It's not about achieving some perfect state of solitude.
Well, becoming a hermit,
It's about embracing the messiness,
the contradictions,
the struggle to find meaning,
in a world that's constantly changing.
and to go back to gray.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the key to being social, too.
How so?
It's not about following some set of rules.
Or trying to be perfect.
It's about being authentic
Open to different perspectives.
and realizing that we're all just figuring things out as we go.
So after this deep dive
Into How to Be Alone,
and into the mind of Jonathan Franzen,
what's the one thing you want our listeners to remember? I think the most important thing is this. This book, this author,
yeah,
it's not about easy answers.
these are quick fixes
It's about starting a conversation
with yourself.
with the world,
And that might involve some discomfort,
some wrestling with tough questions.
but that's how we grow.
That's how we learn,
It's about embracing the journey
even when it's challenging. So we've made it
to the end of our deep dive
into How to Be Alone.
and into the mind of Jonathan Franzen.
And the big question is,
Did he actually succeed?
in teaching us how to be alone,
Right. I mean, we've talked a lot about his arguments,
these contradictions,
his opinions on everything.
but did we learn anything?
Like, practically.
Can we actually be alone now?
After reading this book?
I think it depends what you're expecting.
Okay.
If you want a step-by-step guide,
On how to become a hermit,
like Thoreau,
living off the grid.
you'll be disappointed.
This book's not about physical isolation.
Right. It's more about
A mindset
an internal space
where you're comfortable,
with your own thoughts,
even the messy ones.
the contradictory ones.
And it's about realizing
Latitude.
isn't the opposite of connection
It can actually lead to,
deeper relationships.
with others,
Like Gray said,
focusing so much on the individual.
that he forgets about the social aspect.
But then he also said,
That a strong sense of self
cultivated through introspection
and connection.
can make
The
us,
social
like Franzen gives us the tools.
to build this amazing inner world.
Right then,
Ooh.
what did it tell us?
How to share it
With others,
like a map.
with half the terrain missing.
So how do we fill in the blanks?
How do we bridge that
That
gap
solitude.
and connection? That's the challenge.
And I don't think there's a simple answer.
Maybe that's the point.
Franzen isn't giving us a formula.
He's inviting us
That's a journey
of self-discovery,
to think critically
about technology,
about reading.
about engaging with ideas.
I
And maybe
have
that journey
ups and downs
is more rewarding.
than any destination.
It's about the process,
The messiness,
recognizing that
the search for meaning.
for connection.
It's ongoing
And it's okay.
to not have all the answers. So what's the one thing
You want our listeners to take away,
from this deep dive?
don't be afraid
Of
of getting
freedom.
uncomfortable.
Of asking the big questions.
Even if they don't have easy answers,
Embrace the challenge
of solitude,
of introspection
of engaging with
that
ideas
push you.
outside your comfort zone.
And don't be afraid
Could disagree.
with anyone
Sometimes the best
to
insights,
come from those moments
friction,
of question.
of challenging the status quo. We'll leave you with this.
One final thought
Franzen argues,
for the importance of solitude.
in a noisy world,
But can we truly find ourselves?
in isolation,
Or do we need
genuine connection,
Lord.
truly understand
who we are?
what resonated with you
What questions are you left with?
about Franzen,
About literature
about your own relationship
with the world. Thanks for joining us.
on this deep dive.
Until next time,